whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Coming off of, 4 days of celebration of Independence Day. On Thursday, we weren't here Friday. Many people took that Friday off, and Saturday, Sunday. Now here we are. Man, what a wild ride! There's been a ton of news that has happened over the last 4 days, and we're going to be covering as much of it as we can. Do want to say that we're going to get to talk to our friend Mr. Joey McCutcheon coming up at 7:33. Now, the reason we're going to be talking to him is he was. He's a big proponent of the Freedom of Information Act and making it apply to everyone in government. But the Arkansas Supreme Court had an unfavorable decision concerning public meetings and whether or not or what constitutes a public meeting. Therefore, is it subject to the Freedom of Information Act? What you have is some of these government officials. Specifically at local governments, city councils, that are essentially, the allegation is, conducting private meetings via email that are not surveilled by you, the taxpayer. And so because of that, there are some, like me and like Joey McCutcheon, quite frankly, who think that that's wrong. However, you have to understand something, that right now, down at the State House, the Marble Palace, you cannot FOIA the emails of your state representatives or state senators. That information is considered private. And so because of that, if there would have been any movement or any change, if the Supreme Court would have ruled favorably, strengthening the Freedom of Information Act here in Arkansas, it could have had far-reaching implications, not just from local governments, but all the way down to the folks governing us in the city of Little Rock. So that's fascinating stuff. We'll be talking with Joey at 7:33 about that. And the decision happened a few weeks ago. We also have another judge that's blocked anti-libertarian party law. We'll tell you about that as well. But, man, there's so much to get to. I'm going to get to the Jeffrey Epstein stuff on the national front because that is just such an explosive news story that developed, I guess, late Saturday evening. With the, I think, the Daily Beast breaking that story of all people. So we'll get to that. But before we do, did anybody watch the Independence Day celebration on the Mall with President Trump? It was fantastic, let me tell you. And I don't even know, at this point, it's incredible to me. The President of the United States got the left in this country to protest celebrating Independence Day. I read an article on Breitbart.com over the weekend that said the Democrat Party had the worst week in like 40 years. 40 years. Let me see if I don't actually have that pulled up on our queue. Let me see if I can't find that. Democrats' worst week. Let's see if it comes up. Yeah, it was Nolte. This is it. 47 years, he says. Democrats just had their worst week in 47 years. Listen to why. Number one, the fake news media is the only shrinking institution in America's booming economy. Okay, so that's the first thing, because you had great jobs numbers. But before 2019 is over, John Nolte writes, there will be upwards of 12,000 jobs cut within the American media. That's 12,000 fewer Democrat foot soldiers, 12,000 fewer propagandists, serial liars, cheerleaders, and toadies to hold Antifa's jacket as they beat elderly Trump supporters to death with crowbars. You can see what he did there. Number two, Democrats lost the sane one, quote, the sane one, Joe Biden. That's just because Joe Biden is a gaffe machine, and now, of course, he's having to go so far left to compete in a Democrat primary. Joe Biden has now openly embraced gun confiscation, taxpayer-funded abortions, the banning of every gun currently being manufactured except those with the James Bond smart handles, raising everyone's taxes. He's for that, putting an end to deportations of illegal immigrants. And now we don't really know where Joe stands on awarding health insurance to illegals and decriminalizing illegal immigration, because he did raise his hand when he said, would you give health insurance to illegal aliens? And then, of course, now he's trying to flip-flop on that because every candidate on the stage that night raised their hands, which is a position that polls terribly. Number 3, Democrats handed the 4th of July to President Trump because they can't stand just unadulterated appreciation for the blessings that we have as America, the reasons we separated from Great Britain. Nolte writes, rather than join President Trump in celebrating America on the 4th of July, no joke, the left raged against the idea of celebrating the birth of our great nation in the nation's capital, and then, after assuring us no one would show up or it would get rained out or it would end in a military takeover because he wanted to display army tanks, or that Trump would make the celebration all about himself, none of that actually happened. None of it did. It was a fantastic ceremony. The flyovers were great. And it was only President Trump relating stories of the heroism of the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines. That's all it was. And he did it in the rain. And the Army band sounded great. The choir sounded great. The last song that they sang, that fantastic arrangement of Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. Yeah, sorry. I wanted to say my eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. It was incredibly uplifting and patriotic, and the fireworks show. Oh my goodness. And there are now people saying that it doesn't matter who's president, but that Donald Trump started a tradition, and that every president from henceforth should do exactly what Trump did on the 4th of July. Not to mention, I thought John Stamos did a good job. Did anybody see John Stamos? Joe, did you see John Stamos? I thought John Stamos was a class act. I thought he did a good job. I mean, when the fireworks show was going on, obviously you have the 1812 Overture, because you got to have the 1812 Overture. But they played everything from God Bless America to 76 trombones. It was fantastic. I don't see how anybody could not like that unless you just have a personal hatred for the President of the United States. And you're letting it cloud everything about this country that is worth celebrating about. I really thought, though, because of the day 1812 Overture and Tchaikovsky, I thought, oh, Russia, okay, we're going to bring this. Oh, of course he would play the 1812 Overture because, you know, those Russians. Yeah, give me a break. Anyway, none of that stuff the left said actually happened. The number 4 reason the Democrat Party had the worst week in 47 years, according to John Nolte over at Breitbart.com. Democrats came out against the American flag. This is a story we didn't have time for, believe it or not, on the Wednesday before we left for the break. But the Betsy Ross flag, the Democrat Party came out against the Betsy Ross flag. And it had to do with Nike. It had to do with, I mean, this is insane. If you really think about this, if you actually go over a list of the stuff that Nolte here is like laying out here, it really is remarkable. He makes some good points here. Quote, no joke, we now have Democrat presidential candidates arguing the American flag, the most potent symbol for freedom and liberty in the history of mankind, is a symbol of oppression, according to Democrat presidential candidates. Do you remember when Democrats, the media, and all those Never Trumpers told us it would stop with Confederate monuments? No, they're going after the flag just like they're going after Thomas Jefferson and George Washington statues. This won't stop until all our symbols are gone and replaced with a hammer and a sickle, an upside-down cross, and a female genitalia. Maybe one of those hats. Number 5, Democrats are campaigning for votes in Mexico. No, not New Mexico, Mexico. For those wondering why Democrats, Nolte writes, want to flood this country with illegal immigrants, I give you the fiercely heterosexual Cory Booker and the fake Hispanic Patty O'Rourke, both of whom went looking for votes in another country, in Mexico. Oh, by the way, might want to Might want to check out what Tom Fitton over at Judicial Watch had to say about L.A. County cleaning up their voter rolls. We've got a Twitter video of that later in the show. I'm going to show you that because it's fascinating. All these people that say voter fraud or is a myth. Okay, wait till you hear these statistics. Number 6, Democrat presidential candidates are documented extremists. Look at this left-wing lunacy, he writes. Look at the bottomless list of promises made by these candidates. Promises that include gun confiscation, open borders, legalizing abortion until the fetus registers for college, government-funded health insurance for illegal aliens, slavery reparations, gay reparations, forced busing. No one has to pay back that $1.5 trillion in student loan taxpayers are on the hook for, eliminating everyone's health insurance, abolishing the Electoral College, and taxpayer-funded abortions for transsexual women who are really guys and will never really need an abortion. But maybe that's why men have been paying for abortions under Obamacare as part of our health care coverage, right? Maternity leave and that sort of thing. Number 7, jobs, jobs, jobs. This was also bad news for the Democrats because the economy surprised everyone again. Seems weird. It's kind of like the polling. Hillary's going to win, Hillary's going to win, Hillary's going to win, and then Trump wins. And it's like we have these economy. Well, I know Trump says, 3%, but I don't know. Things are slowing down now. And then all of a sudden, boom. Bad news for the Democrats. As almost always, good news for America, John Nolte writes. The jobs numbers this week, very healthy jobs number. That's the Democrats' worst nightmare. I mean, they're hoping for the economy to take a downturn so that they can then blame Trump for it. And who knows, with the Fed, thinking that they can control the economy like we can control the thermostat in our homes. I mean, who knows? Maybe they will crash it. I don't know. Number 8, the stock market goes boom. That's not good for the Dems either. And number 9, Cherokee Warren and Kamala Extract Harris. That's my word. Forced busing. Harris are now presidential frontrunners. So you have Elizabeth Warren, who is a fake Indian, wants to outlaw everyone's private health insurance, pay slave reparations, pay gay reparations, decriminalize illegal immigration, give government-funded health insurance to illegal aliens, end the deportation of illegal aliens, raise everyone's taxes, force taxpayers, including those who paid back their student loans, to eat $1.5 trillion in student debt, pack the Supreme Court with left-wing justices, force taxpayers to pay for abortion, end the Electoral College, confiscate guns, and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, those are now the front runners of the Democrat Party. And so, with all that being said, by the way, giving health insurance to illegal immigrants used to be something the Democrats pushed back against when Joe Wilson said that President Obama was lying in his speech. Remember that? They will not go to illegal immigrants. You lie. And Joe Wilson was a racist for saying that because, you would never have said that if it was a white guy giving the speech. That was the allegation. Anyway, this is a fantastic, very comprehensive article over at Breitbart.com. Nolte says that it was the worst week for the Democrats in 47 years. Maybe I shouldn't even report on this. Maybe, again, conservatives, just quietly back out of the room. They're doing this to themselves. These people that hate the president so much personally will give him no credit on literally anything he does. Anything he does will give him no credit. If they really wanted him bad, if they could control themselves, they might be able to field a candidate that'd be competitive. No. They're not going to, they can't help it. They cannot help it. Right? They're inventing words like reproductive justice, saying that men who want to be women also need to have access to abortions. That's not something that's being made up here, by the way. That's not some radio talking point. That's a Democrat presidential candidate's opening statement from the debate stage, Julian Castro, who Joe Biden called Julio the other day, which was funny. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. Let me know what you thought if you got to watch it. PBS, of all places, PBS covered the president's 4th of July tribute and the what happened on the mall with John Stamos and the Capitol. Fantastic performance. So let me know what you think. You can sound off in the comments below, facebook.com/Conduit News. And as always, remember to go to the YouTube channel and subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications so that you can get everything Conduit News digitally. We'll be back here in just a moment. Folks, the Patriots of X746 are on a mission to educate you and all the citizens around you about your gun rights here in Arkansas. The idea of constitutional carry, permitless carry. You don't need a permission slip or a permit from the government to carry a weapon open or concealed in the state of Arkansas. There is much consensus on that, but there's also much confusion being pushed out by the propagandists in government, and that is exactly what this is. This is government propaganda. And it's probably, we're probably going through this because of a revenue stream or a fear of revenue stream being cut off. You can go to Facebook.com and search for Patriots of Act 746. Listen to the rest of this segment, by the way. You're going to want to hear it. Welcome to the program from the Patriots. We've got Mr. Jim Ennis back on the program. Hey, Jim, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Paul. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, I want to get your take on a meeting that happened between the Arkansas State Police, the head of the police there, Bill Bryant, the attorney for the Arkansas State Police, and legislators a couple of weeks ago. Now, were you at that meeting, or have you just seen the video that is thankfully archived on the Arkansas House of Representatives website?
I was not present at the meeting, but I have watched that video several times.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, isn't it? I mean, let's just get a general take, and then I want to play some of the audio from it.
Well, I mean, yes, it was frustrating, and it was obviously frustrating for a lot of the legislators that were there. John Payton, Marcus Richmond, there were several there that were frustrated with Colonel Bryant and the General Counsel. They repeatedly asked for the state police to provide the statute in which somebody could still be arrested for carrying concealed without a permit, and repeatedly the Colonel Bryant and the General Counsel both could not give that statute. It was just a lot of just a lot of side talk and everything, and could not come up with that statute. Because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, and they're leaving us and the citizens no choice but to speculate on why they will not state the obvious. And as law enforcement officers, and when it comes to criminal code, it's got to be clear. And they're saying because it's not clear, it means that that constitutional carry is not a thing. Let me cue this up. Let's go. This is Richard Womack. This is kind of toward the end of the question. Here's State Representative Richard Womack talking to the Arkansas State Police attorney at the Arkansas Legislative Council a couple of weeks ago. Watch this.
Okay.
To be demonstration of unlawful intent. Senator Ballinger was correct. And
I want to just stop you because, we're kind of going back over the same ground here, and that was not my intent. I think the answer was no. Like, you don't have clear language there, which, going back to where Representative Ballinger went, when it comes to a criminal charge, you have to.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking. as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. 870-275-9799, telephone number if you want to contribute to the conversation. Man, so I thought the celebration in the mall was fantastic. I don't know if any of you guys watched it. I thought it was really, well, just in terms from an objective standpoint, it wasn't anything that the left said it was going to be. They said it was going to be Trump and his ego and, and a military takeover, all this ridiculous nonsense. It was none of that. It was just the president honoring the military. That's all it was. There's this photo. Is this technically a meme, or is this just kind of this isn't our meme of the day, by the way. That's coming up at 7:50, but do what now? It's kind of like a meme. This is pretty funny. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez superimposed. This is, the picture of her at the border. Oh, by the way, there's a Twitter handle, Mini AOC, this little girl that looks a lot like AOC, and she's stopped her parody account because the left got so mad at her they started threatening her and doxing her, figured out where she lives, so her parents did the right thing. Excuse me, I got a cough. So her parents were like, we don't want rabid leftist Antifa people at our house, so we're just gonna go ahead and. I mean, was it the right thing? I don't know. I mean, you got to protect your children. You hate to see people cave to fear, though, in the United States of America. But yeah, this is a pretty good one. AOC tweeting that Trump's event at the mall was poorly attended, first of all. Now look at the size of that crowd. Look at that. I don't know if anybody saw the flyovers. To say it was poorly attended is just... I mean, you may wish it would have been poorly attended, but all those people showed up while it was predicted to storm. Just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, elite. Here's AOC, and Trump was forcing them to drink from the reflecting pool. I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, you can get rid of that if you want. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the weekend. It was fantastic, I thought. Let's see here. People saying the question about her being the candidate, Kamala Harris, I don't know. I do believe the Democrats are addicted to the extract, though. That's Dennis on Facebook. I don't know which candidate they're going to go with. I think, like I said, I think they're going to go. I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to resist going with the mayor from Indiana, Pete Buttigieg. I'm serious, because he's gay. I'm telling you. The first woman president didn't work out, so I mean, they're going to try. They're going to try for the first gay president. They only think in terms of supposed marginalized groups, victim and oppressor. They got to find. Really, I mean, it's the one whoever can out-victim the others. That's the one the Democrats are going to vote for in the Democrat primary. Who do they think is the most oppressed? And that's probably not going to be Joe Biden, I can tell you that much. Folks, telephone number 870-275-9799. We'll be back here in just a moment. More news coming at you. The arrest of Jeffrey Epstein for sex trafficking. Who all is that going to ensnare? We'll tell you about that coming up.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Have that. So if you don't have that, and I'm assuming you don't, right? Like you've had a couple, 3 opportunities now to state this is the language that's as plain as day that makes this illegal. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm really looking for a yes or no answer because, you know, you stated your opinion and how you interpret it, and of course everybody in this room can have the same thing. So I'm just going to move to my follow-up.
Dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
For the online audience, you guys are just seeing a little bit of a video from the Arkansas Legislative Council about a month ago. Has it been that long? Maybe not quite that long. Arkansas Legislative Council. Them questioning the Arkansas State Police, and it's a fascinating video. We were doing an interview with the Patriots VAC 746's Jim Ennis. We're gonna that's already been posted on the YouTube channel, that full interview, so you can see the whole thing. But there's, you know, there's going to be a follow-up. Just be watching the Conduit News. Be watching the Conduit News front page, just because I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that video. I'm going to post it to the front page, just because of one of the last questions I asked. You know, when it comes to open carry in the state of Arkansas and the Arkansas State Police, according to my sources, telling their officers one thing, meaning, you know, you can't arrest somebody for open carry or concealed carry without a permit because, you know, just of what the law actually is, the decriminalization of carrying a weapon in Arkansas. And there may be other officers that have been told something completely different. But they're the premier law enforcement agency in the state, and we don't need this. Ask your local prosecutor whether, I mean, that's ridiculous. Ask your local prosecutor whether or not, you know, you can exercise your right to keep and bear arms here, but you can't over in this state. I mean, this part of the state. That doesn't make any sense. It's that is the wild, wild west. That's not good government. But my last question, I didn't mean for it to be a bombshell, but I couldn't help it. It has to be asked. Does the Arkansas State Police really not want to publicly admit what the law says now about guns in Arkansas because they're worried about people from lower socioeconomic neighborhoods finding out that they also can carry weapons? Is there a racial component to this? Needs to be asked, doesn't it? Telephone number 870-275-9799. Okay, let's see here. Let's go with this massive headline here. DailyBeast.com. What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a post that Jeffrey Epstein has been arrested. Jeffrey Epstein is being held at the federal lockup in Manhattan federal Justice Department charging him with sex trafficking of minors. He's probably going to be we're going to see the full charges. We're going to see those sometime today, or at least we're expected to see, documentation in a court sometime today. The Daily Beast writes, billionaire pedophile. Oh, yeah, he's already been convicted of that. He faces now like 45 years in prison. Billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for allegedly... I thought these people were untouchable, by the way. I mean, I thought, we're talking about a billionaire here. I thought these types of people were above the law. He was arrested for allegedly sex trafficking dozens of minors in New York and Florida between 2002 and 2005. He will appear in New York court on Monday, according to 3 law enforcement sources. Epstein owns a New York mansion and an island of the Caribbean. Epstein Island, we know because of flight logs, Bill Clinton's been on that plane many, many, many times. This has got everybody speculating who else is going to go down because of this. Of course, the mainstream media can't help but bring the president into this. Because, number one, the labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, is this prosecutor from Florida. Now, he's now, Trump's labor secretary. I don't think he's going to be Trump's labor secretary for long. But they're now bringing Trump into this because this labor secretary, Acosta, when he was a prosecuting attorney, gave Jeffrey Epstein what some people have reported as an illegal plea deal, trying to sweep all this under the rug. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the swamp is difficult to drain. There's no doubt about that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So now all of these photos, instead of the photos of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, instead of them running with that, of course they're running with all of the photos out there, all of them, of Trump and Epstein. I find that very interesting. Now, of course, look, I mean, you can paint with a lot of data out there, leaving some data out. You can paint whatever picture you want to paint with all of this, quite honestly. We need to wait and see where the chips fall, though. When you're a billionaire and you meet another billionaire, you probably stop and have your photo taken. But, I mean, again, even Donald Trump said that Jeffrey Epstein... it was just well known Jeffrey Epstein likes young women. Donald Trump said this to news publications. Matter of fact, let's go there because this was an interesting article about this Jeffrey Epstein case. Go over to the Zero Hedge article, Joe. This was posted last night. Zero Hedge. Trump was the only one, according to some, to help a prosecutor in the 2009 Jeffrey Epstein case. With the Saturday arrest of billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein on charges of sex trafficking minors, days after a judge ordered that nearly 2,000 documents be made public following a 2017 court motion originally brought by filmmaker and author Mike Cernovich, the internet is once again abuzz the speculation over who exactly might be implicated by new evidence in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case. Epstein pled guilty to one count of soliciting prostitution from a 14-year-old in 2008, which he served 13 months in jail for. Sweetheart deal with the Department of Justice brokered by the current Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. The sealed records appeal, meanwhile, stemmed from a separate 2015 defamation lawsuit in New York brought by Epstein victim Virginia Roberts against British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. Skipping down. The case was settled in 2017 and the records were sealed, leading to an appeal by Cernovich, who was later joined by the Miami Herald and several other parties, including lawyer Alan Dershowitz, who seeks to clear his name in connection with Epstein's activities. I think Alan Dershowitz's name appeared on one of those flight logs, by the way, of Epstein's plane down to his little island that has all kinds of reports of very strange activities going on. And while Democrats have suggested that the new evidence may implicate President Trump, I mean, how couldn't they, who once called Epstein, quote, a terrific guy who, quote, likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, end quote. Yet, also, Trump reportedly kicked the billionaire pedophile out of his Mar-a-Lago club for trying to recruit underage girls. Others are focusing on the Clintons instead of Trump because they're the ones that have a much greater association with Epstein, or at least from what I can tell. As the New York Post detailed in 2016, Epstein and Clinton were very close. Epstein has spent the bulk of his adult life cultivating a relationship with the world's most powerful men. Flight logs show that from 2001 to 2003, Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's private plane, dubbed the Lolita Express by the press 26 times. After Epstein's arrest in 2006, federal tax records show Epstein donated $25,000 to the Clinton Foundation that year. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's superdelegate daughter Christine quipped on Twitter, quote, "It is quite likely that some of our faves are implicated, but we must follow the facts and let the chips fall where they may." Interesting, Nancy Pelosi's daughter would say that. What about the president, though? Listen to this. Following a 2018 financial settlement between Florida attorney Bradley Edwards, who represented one of Epstein's accusers, only to be later sued by Epstein, Edwards claimed that Donald Trump was the only person who provided assistance when Edwards served subpoenas and notices to high-profile individuals connected to Epstein. Quote, Edwards, "The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he was the only person in 2009 when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people, that I want to talk to them. He's the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know," and he was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and helped us, and we didn't have to take a deposition from him in 2009. A lawyer for one of Epstein's victims says the only high-powered person who helped them in 2009 as they began their pursuit of justice against Epstein was President Trump. Meanwhile, as we noted in 2017, opposition research firm Fusion GPS tried and failed to find evidence of a close relationship between then-candidate Donald Trump and billionaire Jeffrey Epstein, whose Lolita Express private jet ferried powerful clients to his private island, Little St. James. While trying to tie Trump to Epstein in an attempt to push the narrative to at least two reporters, Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, the firm behind the unsubstantiated Trump-Russia dossier, found that the Trump-Epstein link appears purely social, according to the Washington Times, which writes, quote, "Journalist sources told the Washington Times that Simpson pushed the idea of a close relationship between Mr. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein," adding, "Ken Silverstein, the reporter who ultimately wrote an Epstein-Trump report, confirmed to the Times that Fusion had sourced him the story." In January 2016, Vice.com ran Silverstein's story on Trump's ties to Epstein, which framed them as more social, including dinner parties, 2 plane trips, and Epstein hanging out at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach. As Radar reported last year, according to an investigation by Radar, Trump was among dozens of renowned New Yorkers who knew Epstein socially but ostracized him after Palm Beach police uncovered the financier's sleazy double life. Anyway, we will see. You know what I think? I mean, this is just my gut here. I mean, we know that the President of the United States, the guy who's occupying the Oval Office right now, admittedly and transparently, when he was campaigning, to my criticism, by the way, and a lot of other conservatives, openly admitted giving to both Democrats and Republicans in order to get what he needed to get done. And then he used that in his campaign, saying, I know how this works. I know what these people do. I know essentially what they have done politically, with money, what it takes to get things done so that you're able to operate business, in a market that's really not free market, because the government gets involved and tries to pick winners and losers. Now, this kind of upset me because I didn't really buy the idea that somebody who's done all that is now going to somehow use that against the system in an attempt to drain the swamp, as the president was saying he was going to do, or attempt to do. I didn't really buy that. But at this point, I think that that's exactly what we have seen happen. I think that's why so many people on both sides, they want to say, well, no, I don't dislike what he's doing. I just think he's unpresidential. Really? No, I think President Trump is to all of us publicly what a lot of these guys are to each other behind closed doors. That's what I think. I think what we actually have here is more of an honest reflection of what our political system actually is versus what we would like it to be in our minds. And I think President Trump reveals that. He takes back the curtain in some way, and I don't know for what end, but in some way, the Wizard of Oz, we really see what's really going on. That's the way I see it. Now, when it comes to this pedophile stuff, if you're saying back in 2000, Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, now that we know how Trump operates, don't you understand he always will deliver somebody a compliment, but then jab them on the other side? Isn't that what Trump does? So Epstein's a terrific guy, but then, we do understand he likes young women, though. I don't know. I just find the whole thing interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see, and I would assume if you're living a New York billionaire's lifestyle, you know a whole lot about what the average person does not know, and are you going to? Anyway, it's a fascinating situation. In many cases, I believe the left, especially if you look at Donald Trump and his fame. You look at Donald Trump and his NBC show. You fired. What's the name of the show? Why can't I remember the name of Donald Trump's show? Joe, what's the name of Donald Trump's show? The Apprentice. This is why Hollywood hates him so much. He was one of them. That's what they think. They think we let you in to our little system and you turned on us. At least that's my gut feeling. Let me know what you think. Let me, real quick here. This is the Daily Wire. Headline, Pelosi's daughter, quote, quite likely some of our faves implicated in Epstein's case. Does that mean high-profile Democrats? Ryan Saavedra, DNC official Christine Pelosi, daughter of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, warned over the weekend some of our faves are likely to be implicated in the sex trafficking case involving convicted billionaire child sex predator Jeffrey Epstein. Pelosi tweeted, the Epstein case is horrific and the young women deserve justice. It is quite likely that some of our faves are implicated, but we must follow the facts and let the chips fall where they may, whether Democrat or Republican. I completely agree with that, by the way. Whether Democrat or Republican doesn't matter to me. We're talking about terrible things. By the way, if we want to talk about sex trafficking and Jeffrey Epstein, when's the last time you've heard sex trafficking in the news? When's the last time you've heard it, high-profile sex trafficking in the news? When the President of the United States talks about the border. Fact. When the President of the United States talks about the border, you also hear about human and sexual trafficking. Interesting. This is a reported $150 billion a year industry, modern-day slavery. And yeah, we hope that these victims do get justice, and that all of this disgusting behavior is exposed. All right, what else do we have here? 870-275-9799. If you want to call or text, you can text that number. Let's go ahead and take a break. At the bottom of the next hour, we'll be telling you about, this is kind of old news, but we're going to be talking with Fort Smith attorney Joey McCutcheon. Back on June 20th, Arkansas Supreme Court says Fort Smith board emails did not violate Freedom of Information Act. We'll tell you how that weakens the FOIA, but also maybe some things that can be done going forward to strengthen it. What is considered a public meeting? Some of these people are having public meetings, it appears, via email correspondence. And then, of course, their emails are not accessible to you, the taxpayer. You think that's a good thing? Again, 870-275-9799. Back in a moment.
Really, Colonel Bryant, because I don't think you're going to give us the answer that we all know, is you don't have that language. Colonel Bryant, why do you refuse to acknowledge the fact that you don't have that language in code anywhere?
Again, I believe it's the interpretation that I depend on our lawyers at the state police of that statute. And we've hashed it over, but I think it's the totality of the circumstances.
You depending on the lawyers. No, it's your opinion, and the lawyers are
Okay,
justifying your
it just
opinion.
amazes me that that's good enough for you to not have law that you're asking your officers to enforce against the people of the state of Arkansas. That really blows my mind.
Representative Womack, we don't want your mind blown, but we would like to represent Senator Stubblefield at this point.
Wait, let's stop. We'll get to Stubblefield here in a minute. That is incredible to me. And by the way, the chair of that committee from the Senate side is Democrat Keith Ingram, and he was playing defense for the state police the entire time. But so Jim Ennis, let me get you to respond to that.
Well, number one, it's not the position of the state police to interpret law to begin with. They have to go by what is presented to them by the legislature. And the statute clearly states that unless a person has unlawful intent, the mere possession of a firearm is not a crime. And that's even been decided upon. Everybody's been in the government has been crying for the last 6 years, saying that we need precedent. We need a court case. Well, we have a court case. Mm-hmm. As of October 17th, 2018, Taft v. Arkansas, we have a case where the Arkansas State Court of Appeals said that it is not that merely possessing a weapon is not a crime in the state of Arkansas.
And you know, I wasn't at the whole meeting, but I didn't hear anybody reference the Attorney General opinion in response to the late Senator Collins' question. What's the penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a permit? I mean, at the very beginning of her opinion, she admits that there is no such. And exactly. So I would have loved for somebody to been like, so you disagree with the Attorney General? And this idea of like, well, this is what my lawyer's friend, this is what the lawyers tell me. No, you have your opinion. You're the boss. You have the agenda. And the lawyers come around as essentially a spokesperson and try to do they do their mental gymnastics to try to represent your point of view. That's what a lawyer does. And honestly, I mean, she just is, is kind of talking around the obvious, which we have constitutional carry in Arkansas, and the Arkansas State Police don't want to admit it in a public setting. So, Jim Ennis, why don't you think they want to admit it in a public setting?
Well, it's money, and the General Counsel, Mary Claire McLaren, stated, and people can go to
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock. It's Conduit channel. News Radio with Paul Harrell.
There's a video there, Arkansas State Police protecting residents.
This is a sad story. This is only sad because I've interviewed the father, Angel family. His name is Steve Ronnebeck. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, having to do with the We Build the Wall project. And, of course, his son was murdered by an illegal alien. And now I saw this headline this morning, and I was just so upset and angry and the headline, Judge, no death penalty for illegal alien accused of murdering Grant Ronnebeck. Listen to this story, John Binder. This guy walked into a convenience store and killed Grant Ronnebeck over a pack of cigarettes. Stepped over his body and took a few more. That's what happened. Apolinar Altamirano, which sounds like a new, the way I'm pronouncing it, I'm sure it sounds like a new car, a new Nissan or something. Apolinar Altamirano is an alleged self-proclaimed member of the Sinaloa cartel. They're saying he is now ineligible for the death penalty because he's intellectually disabled, only having a 5th grade education, and was unable to obtain special education because he grew up in rural Mexico. Last year, Kemp, the judge in this case, ruled that prosecutors in the case would not be allowed to mention that Altamirano is an illegal alien who has been living in the U.S. for more than 20 years. Now, why would you maybe want to mention that in the case? Could it be that when Altamirano allegedly killed Steve Ronnebeck in that convenience store, that he was out on bail waiting to be deported? That we had, according to reports, there were orders to have this man deported, and yet he was let out on bond. And while he was out, he killed Steve Ronnebeck's son, Grant. It's unbelievable. And now they're saying, well, no, not going to get the death penalty, or he's not eligible for the death penalty because he has a 5th grade education. I guess he didn't know what he was doing was wrong. On January 22nd, 2015, Altamirano allegedly entered a Quick Trip convenience store in Mesa, Arizona, where Grant Ronnebeck worked as a store clerk, and allegedly shot the young man to death after demanding a pack of cigarettes. After shooting and killing Ronnebeck, prosecutors say Altamirano stepped over the body of the young man to grab a couple more packs of cigarettes before fleeing the scene. Following the murder, the illegal alien sent police on a high-speed chase and was eventually arrested and taken into custody. At the time of the murder, Altamirano had been out of police custody on bond, despite having orders to be deported from the United States. And you know, his dad, Steve, comes on this program, and he goes on many other programs, advocating for justice for his son when he can. But what he's really trying to do is make sure no other parent has to go through what he went through, because we can't secure our southern border, because we can't take seriously what's actually going on down there. The crisis that has been for decades. You know why the left and people who only listen to CNN or get their news from, left-wing sites, the reason they don't think it's a crisis is because no one has been telling them what's been going on for the last 30 years. And what I mean by that is Democrats and Republicans were incentivized to not let the American people know this was a crisis. The Democrats and their corporate, overlords, they like the cheap labor. The Republicans like the cheap labor. And then, of course, you have the Democrats' extra incentive because they want a future permanent underclass that will constantly vote for Democrats. And that's a huge part of this. And in the meantime, drugs and our southern border is one of the most violent places on the face of the planet. That's embarrassing considering the status of our nation as the greatest country in the world at this point. Back in a moment.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/conduitnews. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
McLaren is saying that if it would be possible to carry a handgun without a concealed carry permit, what is the purpose of having the concealed carry statute? And then she goes on to say that the Arkansas State Police relies on that $2.9 million a year that they receive from the renewal and issuance of new concealed carry permits in the state of Arkansas. So it comes down to following the money every single time.
Yeah, that's frustrating to me for her to say, well, what's the point of the concealed carry statute? Well, the concealed carry statute was passed during the 90s, and Act 746 was passed in 2013. So sometimes you pass new laws, and then they make the old ones kind of obsolete. That's not a new concept.
Apparently, at Arkansas State Police, it is. They hold strongly on that statute that was passed in 1995, establishing the concealed carry permit and the $100 fee that goes along with it. And we passed a law this year reducing the fees by half because it made it easier for people that do want to have a carry permit. It made it easier for them to obtain one financially. And then what does the state police do is they pad the fees with another $25 state background check fee, and virtually knocks out the reduction of the fee. So you're only saving like maybe $10
That's very
on what would have been a fairly decent reduction in the fees.
We're talking with Jim Ennis from the Patriots VEC 746. Jim, I have heard indirectly that state troopers admit privately that they are instructed essentially that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state when it comes to daily enforcement. In terms of they're not going to arrest somebody for carrying a weapon concealed without a permit, or this idea of open carry. Like they know what the law is because they don't want to tie up the system with all of these arrests
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Telephone number 870-275-9799. If you want to contribute to the conversation, also on Facebook.com/Conduit News. Feel free to go there, check everything out. All right, what do we have here? Let's start with a little Arkansas news this hour here. This is fantastic for deer hunters. Any deer hunters out there? This is from the Democrat Gazette, right? Today. They are considering, the powers that be are considering a urban deer hunt. Well, that's what I would describe it, a Little Rock deer hunt, amid concern of overpopulation. Did you hear that, deer hunters? So now you can plan for the zombie apocalypse and have like actual drills, but instead you're looking for deer. Oh, I'm sure it'll still be where there's plenty of trees and stuff in the parks and that sort of thing. According to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Little Rock City board members are considering an urban deer hunt to buck the trend. That's a good one. Who wrote this? Is there an author to this? Arkansas Democrat. It doesn't say. It doesn't have. It just says it was published today at 2:04 a.m. It doesn't say. It doesn't say who wrote that beautiful pun. I love a good pun. All right. So the Game and Fish coordinator, Ralph Meeker, on July 16th, will present 3 options for urban deer hunting to city board members to address what a large city director Dean Kampuris said is, at-large city director Dean Kampuris said is a growing health and safety issue. Now, for once, this is some health and safety I can get behind, because they're saying, look, if there's so many deer that keep running out of the road, you're going to have more traffic accidents or maybe serious accidents, and we can't have that. So anyway, deer hunters everywhere rejoice. Little Rock I'm sure, it'll be archery and that sort of thing. There are, I'm sure there are many people that are killing deer right now where they're not supposed to be doing, and just hoping that the deer doesn't run into their neighbor's front yard. That'd be kind of awkward, right? Like, let's say you got a little woods in your backyard and you have a population of deer that you've seen come through, and maybe you want to set up a feeder. And this is in some people's backyards. And you say, you know what, I can get up in a tree and I can take one. That's all well and good, but when deer get shot with an arrow, they tend to run a little bit. So you want to and they tend to run downhill. You want to make sure that wherever they're going to run, they don't run into your neighbor's fresh cut Bermuda, because that might look a little awkward. You'd be like, oh my gosh, look what happened! This deer fell on this arrow and then ran into your yard. You know what? I'll take care of that for you. The first option, the city would simply allow hunters to follow state and local regulations in bow hunting. Each deer would count toward the hunter's bag limit. The second option involves the city becoming a de facto hunting club. The city could choose who hunts, supply extra tags for hunters, and decide on a duration for the hunt within the statewide hunting season. An Arkansas Game and Fish biologist would set up a plan for the hunt. The deer killed in the city in accordance with the Deer Management Assistance Program would not count towards the bag limit. And then option number 3, the Gazette reports, which Meeker said is more commonly used in larger cities, would enroll Little Rock in the Game and Fish's Urban Deer Hunt Program. The program requires hunters to complete the International Bow Hunting Education Program, pass a shooting proficiency exam, Attend an orientation and pay $50 in order to hunt in the city. Well, something telling me they're going to go with option number 3, folks. What do you think? They're going to want to license you to the hilt, right? To the hilt. The payment funds a liability insurance policy for the city, I guess in case you shoot somebody that's not a deer. An approved hunter in one urban deer hunt program city can hunt in other cities. Oh, so that would mean we would have potentially it'd be a tourist attraction then. Come hunt our Little Rock deer, and we'll let you take the meat. Anyway, apparently every option requires the city to alter its ban on the discharge of bows in city limits. Apparently, you're not supposed to shoot bows in the city limits. It is okay to rob from the rich and give to the poor, though.
Read the last sentence of that paragraph.
Last sentence of the paragraph. Oh, the third option also requires that the first deer a hunter kills must be a doe, and that the doe must be donated to the nonprofit Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry program. No, we're starving. We need the meat. No, if I kill a deer, I'm keeping the meat. It's delicious. Sorry, especially go through all the work. No, I don't think you need to go with that option. You need to give people, if they want to donate it themselves, fine, but you keep what you kill. You know what I'm saying? That's what I think. I mean, we're here doing you a service, taking these urban deer off of your hands. Anyway, what we do need is we need some bow control, some archery control. There's too many bow-related deaths out there.
Especially in urban areas.
Yeah. Bows kill people. All right. So, that's a little news there. I mean, I guess that could be fun. Although, if I'm honest, I know Little Rock. I know Arkansas in general is a very, when we say urban, there's still so much greenery, around. You say it's an urban environment, but there's still patches of woods that go and, are good habitats. So, but if it's me, I don't want to be anywhere near a city when I'm hunting. You want to be out in the middle of nowhere. Then that's the best way to hunt. But anyway, it is a problem. What do those deer eat though? What does their diet consist of? In other news, 4th of July weekend, there was a firefight of fireworks in central Arkansas, and it turned into a melee, according to reports, where at least 5 people lost fingers or parts of their hand. What'd you say, Joe? People are dumb. Yeah. Arkansas Democrat Gazette has the video. Go ahead and click that button. I want you to listen to some of this while I read the story. Apparently, at one point, go ahead and that's the sound of the firework battle. I mean, they had these mortars, and they were shooting them low too. You got that about $25 would get you a mortar. It would get you like a mortar kit with like 1 tube, and then you have like 10 shots. And you can take, and those are the good fireworks. Look at that. Give us a little bit of volume. Can you give us a little bit of volume, just so we can hear this? But I don't want to overpower me on the online. Yeah, there we go. So you can hear the chaos. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so you hear that there. So eventually, ambulances had to retreat because the ambulances that were called, they were scared. I mean, they were going to get hit in the face with a firework. And we live in a country that allows them the freedom to do this. I'm willing to tolerate it as long as, I'm willing to tolerate the bad as long as, because, it's better. Oh, yeah, people missing fingers and hands definitely learned their lesson. I don't think they're going to be terrorizing neighborhoods or getting in a fireworks battle anytime soon. The Gazette reports that the crowd shot so many fireworks at ambulances. They were shooting them at the ambulances. The first responders could no longer drive into the area. Burke said, which meant deputies had to transport people with missing fingers 3 or 4 blocks before they could be seen by a medic. The deputies applied tourniquets and bandages to multiple people who suffered burns from the display-grade fireworks. Let's see. Body camera footage from deputies on 3M Road late Thursday shows an almost constant barrage of fireworks shooting small balls of fire around the street and park. Well, you see that there. You guys can see what's going on the screen at facebook.com/Conduit News. It sounded like a war zone. It did sound like a war zone. McLean said she returned home from her son's house around 6 p.m. to find the sheriff's deputies and a crowd of people around her house, a large patch of grass near the railroad tracks. I said, that wasn't like that when I left. An officer told me it caught on fire. They had to put it out. My goodness, what is going on? This is insane. This is insane. Quote, I saw 3 people get hurt. This one guy, his whole hand was off. So we have somebody that lost an entire hand. That would happen. I'm assuming if you took one of those mortars. I'm talking about, one of those mortars that's, probably about half the size of my hand. That goes into the tube and then you light it. If you were trying to just throw one of those like a grenade and you let the fuse, you weren't paying attention. Which, sounds like everybody was paying attention. If that thing went off, yeah, you'd have a problem. You'd have a big problem on your hands. I'm sorry. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the conversation today. This is other news. So the Republicans and the Democrats in the last legislative session decided to attempt to block new parties or third parties from having an easier path to ballot access by making it harder for, let's say, the Libertarian Party to get automatic ballot access without having to go through the signature petitions. So this law that was passed in the last session, it sparked, obviously, an immediate lawsuit from the Libertarians because they thought this was not right. And, of course, the Secretary of State, Republican John Thurston, is Secretary of State, and so he's got to defend this because it, was the law. And so the judge, Christine Barker, essentially says, no, you can't enforce 6 state laws that, among other things, require political parties to obtain more signatures. Of course, we've had about the same status quo now for about a decade, for 10 years. And it wasn't until this last gubernatorial election that gubernatorial candidate Mark West almost got to the, 3% that you need? So if he got to 2.9%. And if he had gotten to 3% of the total vote cast for governor, then the party automatically, goes on the ballot next time. Doesn't have to attain the 26,000 or whatever. No, the 26,000 number is what they would have raised it to, 26,000 signatures. So now there's an injunction. It's a 60-page order. Baker said Thurston and his representatives must refrain from imposing the 3% requirement on the Libertarian Party. She said they also must refrain from failing to recognize the party as a new political party and failing to restrict ballot access to the group as a new political party if the petitions contain at least 10,000 signatures of registered voters. So this is interesting. You have the attorney representing the Libertarians saying this was a Republican deal. He said the Libertarian Party is seen as a threat to the Republican Party, the state's dominant party, both in Congress and in the state legislature. He said votes for Libertarian candidates are believed to take votes that might otherwise go to Republicans, with whom Libertarians are more closely aligned than Democrats. Yeah, it was a Republican deal. You can definitely say that. I don't know why the Republicans are threatened by Libertarians, though. I really don't understand it. I know that there's going to, it's inevitable. There's going to be a Libertarian serving in the state house or state senate at some point. It's just going to happen. Or there's going to be someone who's unaffiliated. It's going to happen eventually. It's a long shot, but it's going to eventually happen. And I think they're worried about this because right now with a two-party system, you have clear lines, but you also have clear funding streams. That is to say that much of the money that ends up funding, state policies is the same money that goes to contribute national policies and that sort of thing, and vice for Democrats and Republicans. It's kind of all connected. And so, there are many people that think national political parties are bad. I am not there yet. I'm not there yet at all. But matter of fact, this whole thing about being threatened by libertarians is not a very Republican thing to do. I mean, the libertarians almost get ballot access automatically, and the Republicans immediately come and try to pass a law to make sure that you don't ever get that close again. It doesn't really sound very American. It sounds like the Republican Party is afraid to compete in the arena of ideas. It also sounds like the Republicans are tired of having, let's say you have a big government Republican. They don't want to run two races, right? They don't want to have to fend off a Republican primary opponent, win that, and then face a libertarian in the general that is saying more conservative things than they are. That's really what this is about. Republicans are annoyed at the idea that if they're a big government Republican, they might face a primary, or it really doesn't even matter big government. If you're, because there are small government Republicans that get primaried by the establishment. But anyway, so if you're a Republican, you get primaried, and you win that. You're the incumbent. You fend that off. But then you've got to face a libertarian, where you're going to have a significant block of the people that voted for your opponent in the primary that might be tempted to go ahead and vote for the libertarian in the general. And you never know. It could be a perfect. I guess my point is that's what they're trying to stop here. And we have a judge, Christine Baker, saying no, you can't do this. I think it's when this thing passed, I think everybody knew that this was going to be unconstitutional and there was going to be a judge that was going to strike this thing down. I'm pretty sure everyone assumed that to be the case. Folks, we've got Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney. He's going to be on the program coming up at 7:33. We're going to talk about Arkansas Supreme Court decision from last month that slipped through the cracks. We'll tell you about that coming up at 7:33. We're going to take a break. This is Conduit News. Don't go anywhere. Charges that would never be brought because the cases would be thrown out because prosecutors know what the law is. We've seen this time and time again. Somebody gets arrested by some police officer somewhere that doesn't really know what the changes are yet, and we've seen this time and time again. So, first of all, have you heard that as well, that state troopers, when it comes to daily enforcement, they've been instructed to enforce the law, but the heads just won't admit what the law is publicly?
Right. Yes, I have heard that, and we've discussed that on the POA page, on several occasions. And the reason why, again, goes back to the fact that there is no statute that they could write. They've got to write a ticket or they've got to arrest somebody on a given statute, and there's no statute there for them to make the arrest. So if they were to arrest somebody under carrying a concealed weapon or a weapon of any kind without a permit, that's false arrest.
Yeah. Yeah, and
so they understand that that's opening them up to a liability, and false arrest charges and all, and court cases and all this other stuff. They don't want that to go that way.
Yeah, they are open for civil litigation if they were to do what some of these local governments have done that have now corrected their policies. I do have somebody on Facebook, Roger, saying that he's been told by the Arkansas State Police that they will arrest you for concealed carry without a permit. So maybe there is some, there may be some ambiguity there.
And again, it may come down to the particular jurisdiction, where Roger may be.
Right.
You go over into eastern Arkansas. There's towns and communities over there that are very anti-Second Amendment, and they will go out of their way to arrest people.
We're talking with Jim Ennis from the Patriots of X 746. Jim, I really appreciate you coming on. I want to go back to this video. I want to keep you on. I want to go back to this video.
Mm-hmm.
This is Senator Bob Ballinger. I want you to listen to his line of questioning to the Arkansas State Police a couple of weeks ago, because he did a good job of bringing them out and exposing them for just not wanting to admit what the law says. And again, this is our law enforcement agency, our chief premier law enforcement agency. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I didn't necessarily, and I totally get where you all are coming from, and frankly, the code section is written too broad. That's really what the problem is. You guys are dealing with a code section written too broad. I would say that, my encouragement would be to recognize that it's written too broad to the point where it's probably unconstitutional to gather that much information, and so as an agency, you should deal with it. My question really is, going back to the first question that Representative Payton asked you, and you said the code section says that you can't carry concealed without a permit. So what code section? And this is not, honestly, I don't want to put the state police in the...
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
870-275-9799, telephone number. You can call or text if you would like to become a part of the program. We're going to, those of you watching digitally, we're going to have, by the way, that interview is already up on the YouTube page. Go to Conduit News, and you can check out that Jim Ennis interview from last week. It was Wednesday. A lot of people were getting ready for the 4th. Maybe you didn't catch the show on Wednesday. That was a huge interview, and we dissected the Arkansas State Police and their manufactured confusion. We'd let you hear from your politicians what they said, how they questioned the Arkansas State Police. They did a very good job. Matter of fact, we may have to revisit that later in the week, just from the video standpoint, because it's absolutely outrageous how they are, hiding behind legalese and these opinions that just make absolutely no sense. Very frustrating. Over the 4th of July weekend, we had Starbucks. They decided to kick some police officers out of an Arizona coffee shop because they made some customers feel unsafe. Now they have the corporate spokesperson for Starbucks has issued an apology. This also, this is interesting. Just, this anti-police, anti-American. The women's soccer team winning the World Cup. Yeah, they did. And then one of them threw the American flag down on the ground. Did they not? Did she not? That's what I saw. Okay, she's one person. Well, President Trump tweeted that he was proud of them, but are they going to come to the White House? Are they going to just buy the? I don't know. We'll see what happens. Is it weird that we had to make it a political statement? The crowd chanted equal pay when they won. Did you know about that, Joe? Equal pay. Hang on, wait a second. American women's soccer team, you just won the World Cup. Let's now use this as an opportunity. I know they don't get paid as much, but why do we want to use that? Everything has to be about politics. And, not only, did they win the World Cup, and, Americans used to be terrible at soccer. Not only that, but, hey, do you know that there's another way that the women's soccer team is a victim? We need to make sure we point that out. I'm just done with it all.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Bad spot, except for the fact that you said that. And so now I'm, I get asked all the time, right? That people reach out to me all the time to tell me whether you can carry concealed or not concealed without a permit. I mean, it's a regular occurrence on social media. I get asked probably at least once a week about it. And so, the rule of strict construction would say if you're going to enforce a criminal penalty, which the, carrying a firearm without a, the carrying of a firearm that used to be a crime that's a criminal penalty. If you're going to enforce it,
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. So, there's a man who lives in Fort Smith. His name is Bruce Wade. And he sued the city of Fort Smith in 2017, claiming the emails between several city directors about the employment practices of Fort Smith Police Chief Nathaniel Clark violated the open meetings rules. His attorney in the case is Joey McCutcheon. Last month, the Arkansas Supreme Court handed down a decision saying that the these secret emails did not violate the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act. Here now to talk more about this decision is attorney from Fort Smith, Joey McCutcheon. Joey, good to talk to you again, sir.
Hey, Paul, good talking to you. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. So, listen, I know you're a staunch advocate for the Freedom of Information Act, and so what can you tell us? How did this all develop for you?
Well, we learned that there was a secret email discussion. There's no using any other term, a secret email discussion between board members of the city council in Fort Smith, more or less looking to abolish the Civil Service Commission. We got that through an open records request, and clearly there was discussion of public business that was going to come before the board. In our opinion, a clear violation of the open meetings provision of FOIA. We sued. The circuit judge granted our summary judgment motion, concluding that a meeting did in fact occur, and the city appealed that to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court ruled that that was not in fact a meeting.
So, I mean, that's pretty frustrating because it does appear that they were using email to get around, transparency, really.
Absolutely. If you, I mean, that's exactly what the FOIA is supposed to prevent are these types of discussions, and in fact, decision making. Decisions were made in this matter. There's no question about that. Decisions were made, and I thought Justice Hart wrote an outstanding dissenting opinion, concluding that secrecy is the poison, is poison to democracy, and I think that's absolutely true. So now we've got to look to the solution, which this isn't the first rodeo for Fort Smith. This is the third court case, at least, on FOIA that they've been up. The first was the Harris case. Basically, there were serial discussions by city directors. Then there was McCutcheon, which was my case, versus the city of Fort Smith. And now this decision. So in the McCutcheon case, the Supreme Court said, legislature or city of Fort Smith, if you want a definition of meeting, then go to the legislature and get one. And I think that's where we've got to go, is we've got to go to the legislature or have a ballot initiative, Paul, and clearly define what a meeting is. And in my opinion, it's if two city council members, two school board members are discussing public business that's going to come before the public body, then that's a meeting.
Yeah. Do you think if the Supreme Court had ruled in your favor or consistent with a lower court, would this have had implications down to like the state legislator, level, or the state senator when it comes to them using emails?
No, I don't think it.
Okay.
It would have, FOIA does not apply to an open meeting to state legislators, although I think it should. I think government ought to be open, whether it's on the city level or on the state level. But that's one thing that I think Governor Rockefeller, who this was his crowning achievement for you, was he was a Republican in the midst of Democrats, and he knew that if he made it apply to state legislatures that this would just not pass, is my opinion. So I think that's one flaw with otherwise what's been a very, very strong FOIA. And this opinion weakened FOIA and must be corrected, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to figure out their logic. Sometimes I don't, whether right or wrong. I feel like sometimes Supreme Court that they look at maybe the other consequences that would happen, the change that would happen as a result of the decision. And I was just wondering if maybe they thought it would, make things more difficult for those in Little Rock. But it would certainly make things a little more difficult, Joey, for those in local government, these city governments. This is probably happening all over the state where decisions are being made via chain emails that are not being done in public. And so it enables them to then have a public meeting. The temptation for me would be, as a human who knows human nature, would to go ahead and get to predetermined outcomes. You're using the email system as like a dress rehearsal for what you want to happen in public. Isn't that the danger?
That's the absolute danger, is that all we see is the final decision. We don't hear the discussion. And in fact, it is happening all over the state. I've got a suit against the West Side School District in Greers Ferry right now, same issue, text message, discussions being had, decisions being made. Ozark, Arkansas, again, their city council, discussion between three board members, decisions being made. So it is, in fact, happening all over the state, whether it's through text messages or whether it's through emails. One thing the Supreme Court did say, which was a nice holding, is that an exchange of emails among public officials can constitute a public meeting. The city of Fort Smith, through spending thousands upon thousands of taxpayer dollars to promote secrecy, wanted the Supreme Court to declare that emails cannot constitute a meeting. But here's the concerning thing with this opinion, Paul. Okay, the Supreme Court has ruled that 7 members who are involved in an email exchange, 3 of them 3 of the members discuss and make a decision on public business that's going to come. What about if they go to McDonald's now and they have 7 board members there, 3 of them discuss it, make a decision, just like in this case? Is that not a public meeting? Is that not a public meeting?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, so tell me about the ballot initiative. You say that's the remedy here. Obviously, we've got a 2020 ballot question that might make it harder. I mean, if we pass, it's going to make it harder to get a citizen-led initiative on the ballot. What are your thoughts?
I think that's one option. What I'm doing right now is I'm going around the state, and folks who are interested, we are forming transparency in government groups. Garland County will have one up and running. We've got one in Boone County. We've got one in western Arkansas. We've got one in northwest Arkansas. Shortly in other cities. I would love for your listeners to give me a call if they want to form a transparency in government group. There are several of us, Bill Ray Lewis in Harrison, Arkansas. We're going around starting these transparency in government chapters in individual cities. And we've also recently started a transparency in government group of Arkansas, and we are actively recruiting members and different chapters, and we'll set up the model, show you the template. There's no more important law than the Freedom of Information Act, Paul.
Yeah.
It holds government accountable. It ensures that we get public records on one side, the public records requirement, and on the other side, it ensures that public meetings are held with notice to the public and to the media. So if your listeners desire to call me, it'd be great, 479-783-0036, and we'll come and talk to them about forming a transparency in government group in their local venue.
I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. It's something that, everybody can get behind. It's a very bipartisan concept because I think whatever your political opinion, you want to know what's going on in your government. Joey McCutcheon, it's always great to have you on, sir. We appreciate the work you're doing, and hopefully, there'll be better days concerning this issue.
Hey, I think there will. We need to get this legislatively fixed also, Paul. Not just, if we can't do a ballot initiative, I'd love to do a ballot initiative if time and money permit. But if not, we need to get the people engaged so that they can get on top of their legislators. Let's get a definition that promotes open government.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hey, Joey, appreciate it, sir. You have a great week.
Hey, appreciate you.
All righty.
Thanks, Paul.
Folks, the folks over at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, we pull this Twitter video up. And other news, people say that voter fraud doesn't exist. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton announced 1.5 million ineligible voters are now going to be removed from California's rolls. This was on July 6th. Listen to this. We're having some problems. Okay. Yeah, sometimes Twitter wants you to refresh before you go on. Yeah, go ahead.
Just generally speaking, federal law requires states to take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. And Judicial Watch has been in the forefront in becoming the first private entities ever to sue under this law to enforce that law. We had successful settlements in Ohio. In Kentucky, there's a consent decree. Indiana, they changed their behavior thanks to our lawsuit. And in California, we found there were many counties, like in Los Angeles, that had more people on their rolls than were living there and eligible to vote. That's a pretty good indication, don't you think, that they're not taking reasonable steps to clean up the rolls? And California is an important state. Los Angeles has over 10 million residents alone. 10 million, which is more than the populations of 41 of the 50 states. It'd be a top 10 state if it were just Los Angeles County. It's that big. And they had over 20% extra name, so they had 20% more names on the rolls than were eligible to vote. And nationally, there are 3.5 million names. And in one county in California, of those 3.5, there are 1.5 million extra names. So-called inactive voters, people who should really be removed from the rolls. And California hadn't enforced that law, as I say, for over 20 years. So Judicial Watch sued And California saw the writing on the wall. Supreme Court in last year upheld Judicial Watch's settlement in Ohio, saying the states needed to do certain things to clean up the rolls that were required. So they settled with us. The Secretary of State did in Los Angeles County.
Again, that's Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, the conservative nonprofit educational foundation promoting transparency and accountability. I'm reading this from their Twitter, by the way. That's doing a great job there. $1.5 million in one California county alone. Folks, nothing to see here, right? What voter fraud? What voter fraud? And they've decided to settle with Judicial Watch. They do some great work. Congressman Rick Crawford has penned an op-ed at Talk Business and Politics about China. Good for him. Congressman Rick Crawford, headline, do we want China to slow down or stop? Do we want China to slow down or stop? He writes, there's an old joke about a man driving his car who rolls past a stop sign, not noticing a police car parked nearby. The officer in the squad car immediately responds with flashing blue lights. The driver obediently pulls over and begins pleading his case when confronted by the policeman. Didn't you see the stop sign, the officer demands? Officer, he explains, I did slow down. The officer responds by producing his nightstick and raining down blows on the non-compliant driver while asking, now, do you want me to slow down or stop? The point is, slowing down and stopping are two different terms and should not be used interchangeably. The same could be said about free trade and fair trade. Way back in 2009, when I began my first campaign for Congress, Congressman Crawford writes, I pointed out the difference between free trade and fair trade. I had been an ardent supporter of the latter, which is why I recognize the value of the policies currently being implemented by the administration to achieve fair trade deals, particularly with China. While there has been much debate over the last year or so about the merit of tariffs as a tool to bring China into compliance, consider this. Since China's ascension into the World Trade Organization in 2001, they have flouted the rules of the trade organization and conducted themselves in a belligerent economic manner. Further, the WTO has been content to look the other way as China attempts to steamroll global trading partners, the U.S. among them, through forced technology transfers, intellectual property theft, currency manipulation, false data reporting, and more, all while receiving the added benefit of being designated a developing economy by the World Trade Organization. A case in point, soybeans. The casual observer might point to the implementation of tariffs as the precipitating factor in the sharp decline in soybean prices a year ago. In fact, one could argue that tariff action implemented by the administration had little to do with it. Not surprisingly, China itself is more likely the culprit. As they are, I'm sorry, got to find my spot here. As they are wont to do, China made a false supply and demand report. Certainly not the first time they've done so. Think cotton just a few years ago. And U.S. soybean farmers and global markets responded predictably. A lower carryover stocks report resulted in a market uptick, and a reported increase in Chinese demand prompted U.S. farmers to increase soybean acres. The markets hovered around $10.40 a bushel until such time as those reports were amended, leading to a roughly $2 a bushel decline in soybean futures pre-tariff, mind you. The ensuing fallout resulted in a net positive to the Chinese of about $4 a bushel, realizing a cash savings of $2 a bushel. Their $2 a bushel gain from a short position in the future market was strategically taken prior to amending supply and demand estimates. Adding insult to injury to U.S. farmers, local basis went haywire while the board floundered, and untimely rains and harvests led to widely reported poor soybean quality, resulting in high dockage at the elevator and, in some cases, refusal of delivery on 2018 soybeans. 2019 hasn't shaped up much better for U.S. farmers, Congressman Rick Crawford writes. Again, talkbusiness.net. Considering both terrible weather and global market conditions, but I do believe there is daylight on the horizon. At the time of this writing, it was reported that China had agreed to purchase over 500,000 metric tons of U.S. soybeans, teeing up the potential for an additional 14 million tons going forward. Welcome news to American farmers. Moreover, the tariffs implemented by the Trump administration appear to be driving a decline in foreign direct investment in China, a critical component of their economy, i.e. a U.S. company building a manufacturing facility in China. The revenue generated from the FDI is essential to China's Belt and Road Initiative, a modern-day Silk Road, which Beijing believes will facilitate its march to global economic supremacy. What's more, the BRI also serves China's aggressive expeditionary goal of global military preeminence, which certainly presents national security challenges to countries around the world. FDI now appears to favor more attractive destinations in the Pacific Rim, Vietnam, India, Malaysia, etc., increasing the likelihood that China will recognize the need to play by the rules for the long-term good of their own economy. The need to keep over 1 billion Chinese employed will also likely be a key consideration as Xi Jinping seeks to avoid a prolonged contracting economy and a potential challenge to his president-for-life status. While many will likely continue to rail against President Trump's blunt instrument of tariffs as misguided or excessive, it's hard to argue with results. Americans need to take a page from the Chinese book and start to think strategically and much more long-term. And when it comes to their continued bad behavior in the global marketplace, IP theft, forced technology transfers, currency and market manipulation, global expansion, and more, Rick Crawford writes, we should ask ourselves, do we want China to slow down or stop? Again, at talkbusiness.net, Congressman Rick Crawford for the 1st Congressional District. Really good stuff here. And I would add to this, it makes no sense that our state government is still pursuing taxpayer-funded deals with the communist Chinese. We got to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's got to be, under the rule of strict construction, you got to be real clear. So what code section prohibits a person from carrying concealed without a permit?
If I may, we are speaking in hypotheticals. And
No, we're not. No, I'm talking about the law. Right, so under the law, what code section says you can't carry a gun without a permit?
I'm only saying that we're speaking in hypotheticals because there's not an instance that I believe anyone has brought to our attention of state police enforcing a code section in a manner other than you suggest might be, or that Representative Payton suggested might be.
No one knows what that
appropriate
means,
under the
lady.
law.
No one knows.
So if
that doesn't make any
we
sense.
were to look at 573-120, where it says that the possession, carrying a weapon unless with unlawful intent to employ it as a weapon against a person. The subsections of that provision, it's, as you know, as an attorney, we have to read it as a whole, taking each word as intended by the legislature. So you have several subsections that are exceptions. One of those exceptions is if you are carrying a weapon concealed and you are a concealed license holder. So the alternative would be, if it's an exception to that, to be a licensed concealed carry holder and you're carrying concealed. Alternatively, it may be determined by an officer on the scene that because you're carrying concealed and you're not a concealed carry license holder, that you have unlawful intent to employ. That may be a determination that is made based on a totality of the circumstances.
That's not how the law works.
On the scene.
That's not how criminal
Yes,
law
but
works.
never consistent under the law, because if this was a civil judgment, I understand, right? Because now it's ambiguous. We've got to try to interpret it. You're going to take those code sections. You're going to say, okay, if we're going to give this meaning in the exception, but that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with criminal, and they're criminal. It's strict construction. And the only reason why an officer on the scene may come up with that interpretation is because of the confusion that comes from the state, and probably the primary, the individual entity most guilty is us, and frankly you, is the state police. The last person who asked me about this said, I asked the state police, and the state police said, that they feel like you can carry, I think it was open, without a permit, but you need to go ask your local law enforcement. That's not the way law works. The law is either it's legal or it's illegal. If it's ambiguous of whether it's legal to carry without a permit, they're the defendant. It's criminal law. The answer is it is legal to carry without a permit.
Stop.
And I'm
Jim.
totally open. If someone can point to
Senator Ballinger, I mean, he really exposed them for basically promoting confusion.
Exactly. Yes. Senator Ballinger did a great job on exposing them for not being able to provide the statute. And again, you cannot arrest somebody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so we have, we've had a jam-packed show today, it feels like. We covered the Independence Day celebration, Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile being arrested for sex trafficking. What else did we cover today? The urban deer hunt that may happen in Little Rock now, as well as the fireworks fight where people got their hands blown off in Pulaski County. And then, of course, we had a judge block the effort led by Democrats and Republicans, mainly Republicans, to keep libertarians from getting ballot access. There's an injunction there. Joey McCutcheon talking about the Arkansas Supreme Court ruling against weakening the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. And then, of course, Congressman Rick Crawford penning an op-ed over the weekend over at Talk Business and Politics, talking about the dangers of China and their market manipulation, how they don't play by the rules, and how tariffs are a good thing. They're actually doing the good thing for farmers. And so now we're going to leave you with your meme of the day. We're going to publish this over at Conduit News for those of you listening that can't see the meme right now. You're listening on radio. But go to Twitter and search for @Conduit News or Facebook.com/Conduit News. It is courtesy of the Instagram handle Vino and Vito's. Betsy's back, and this time it's personal. It's the iconic illustration of Betsy Ross sewing her Betsy Ross flag, but this time she's sewing a Trump 2020 flag that says Keep America Great. You guys check it out. We'll post it on Twitter here momentarily. Share it with your friends. Arkansas, have a great Monday. Be safe.